was actually skipping out on suffering.
Okay. So he was tempted and didn't
Right.
follow through. Just setting that example that, yes, you can be tempted, but there is a way of avoiding that temptation.
Okay.
I don't know if that-
I think Terry's kind of thinking maybe what I'm thinking. I'm not entirely sure. Because I heard him say women.
Yeah.
And that was part of my thing. It's like Jesus assumed human flesh. And I was always told he did that in order to experience what we experience.
I'm not sure to experience it or to show there is a way of living without falling into sin. He was setting an example.
Then again, how would he know what that temptation is really like by not experiencing it to start with? Okay, you grow up, you're told to stay a virgin and everything until marriage. As long as you stay a virgin, the temptation, you do get into peer pressure and everything.
I was
the
going to say
temptation
that
isn't there.
you don't need to be married in order to know what sexual temptation is. I mean, that comes
That's
out of
right.
every single angle in our culture. I mean,
That's getting
it is.
16-year-old boy.
I don't remember the Bible discussing those temptations. The
well, it
physical
does all the time. I mean,
temptations
that's basically
on him.
on him. But you have to understand, Jesus did a lot of radical things in his ministry. The fact that he talked not only openly with women, but he had women traveling with him was scandalous for first century Jews. Because unless they were family, you didn't have any real contact with other women. And especially Mary, she was considered, she's one of those
Sketchy.
girls.
Yeah. But see yes, he was talking to them and that was outside of the norms at the time. But I'm talking about even one step further. I know that there are the uncanonized part of the Bibles, Kinsey. I know, or
Canonization is a Catholic thing.
Well, canonization is a recognition of the books being authoritative, not necessarily selecting which ones have authority.
Right.
So that's not just a Catholic thing.
But see, I have heard of the possibility that there was something more between Jesus and Mary.
Well, that was whole Dan Brown, and
that was the Da Vinci Code.
Right. The Synoptic Gospels, it's funny because when you look at the Gnostic Gospels, which are the ones that are
didn't make it,
the ones that usually critics say that aren't included in the Bible, and it's because they came like 200, 300, 400 years after the apostles died, right?
Yeah,
so no longer any direct eyewitnesses to Jesus. And these books show up, and the churches read them, and they go, yeah, these are garbage. These are not part of our text.
They failed multiple texts. It's not just picking out which one is right or wrong because we say so. They had failed to have the proper names except for just a couple of major characters. The only cities that they got correct was the major ones at the time, and none of the nearby surrounding names that were mentioned were correct, and a lot of details like that lets you know directly that the people that were writing the stories were not the people that were around the area.
Right. Even somebody living in Alexandria, Egypt, would have no idea what the terrain was like, what the layout of the cities was like, what Jewish customs were like, etc., that you would in first century Judea. The other thing that you have to remember about Christ being tempted was he grew up in Nazareth. Nazareth was close to a lot of Roman construction for the cities of the Decapolis. So it's probably likely that both his dad and later him, I'm sure as he helped his dad, worked in the Decapolis and everything else. And these Roman places had lots and lots of first century porn, both in statues and frescoes and everything else all over the place. it's like what they're uncovering in Pompeii right now. A lot of these things that they uncover. So it's not like Jesus was just some hermit who had never experienced this before. It was before his eyes. There were, I'm sure that in some of the Roman cities and everything, temple prostitutes were very popular. Temples that had, both male and female prostitutes. And it's just, he was actually, I'm sure, quite tempted. But the thing is that he had, that none of us had, is he had a different type of connection with God, with the Holy Spirit, and with his Father.
Yeah, he probably would have known.
Thank God.
Yeah, he probably would have known what a prostitute was anyway. He had one in his family line.
Yeah, that's true. Can't forget Rahab. Heck, if you go back even further than that, you've got Tamar. Prostituted herself to Judah.
She played the part more than she actually was one. It was actually to get what was rightfully hers according to family tradition, so that they would be lineage for things to be passed on for her.
Yep. So even though the Bible doesn't explicitly say that, any of the authors of that time period would have said that, yeah, Jesus was subjected even to those temptations.
Well, if he was a man, he was, that's for sure.
Yep.
It was just something that had always bugged me about it.
Do you think that anybody that would have been around him for the most part, with probably anyone that was around him casually as opposed to intimately, do you think any of them would have been able to recognize him as being fully divine?
Well, yeah, you had the centurion.
The transfiguration.
Just looked at him and said, yeah, I know who you are. If your word, all you have to say is your word. My men listen to me. I say one thing, it's done. I have no question.
Well, okay, there's probably a lot of backstory in there. He had heard a lot about Jesus, a lot about what he had done. And I'm sure he was going way out of his comfort zone on going to this, wandering traveling rabbi. And as a centurion, he's got tons of status. And you have to understand that in Jesus' time, they lived in what they call an honor culture, which is you live to amass honor, as much honor as you can. So to go to Jesus was to actually kind of dishonor himself.
Humble.
Right. Yeah, but what Kinsey asked was there any story where someone just assumed he was or knew he was God?
Right.
And I think that's the one story.
The transfiguration.
That's the one story where he said, I'm a commander. I say the word. I don't have to tell. I have to physically talk to the person. I just say it and it's done. And he said the same thing because he said, I think Jesus wanted to go back to his place. And he goes, no.
Yeah, but
from here, if you're God, you say it and it's going to be done because I know who you are.
Yeah, but hold on. One real quick. Okay. In the same scenario, in a different time, wouldn't he be able to say the same thing with the same confidence to Elijah or to Moses?
Yep.
Elijah, maybe. I don't know about Moses. Elijah, maybe. I don't know about Moses, because Moses, everyone knew who he was. He wasn't God. I mean, he killed somebody, so they know that right away. He wasn't. He may have been a messenger or talked to God, the Father. Elijah is somebody different. He was performing miracles. But
the centurion didn't walk up to him and say that I believe you're God, so everything will go through and from the authority.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
What did he say?
He never referred to Jesus as God. He just said you have authority.
Authority, but authority to heal. So I mean, it's pretty close to being a god.
Well,
You kind of okay, but Elijah, I think, is the next closest thing because he was working with God's powers to defeat Baal and do all the things that he did. So I think if someone was at another time, another place, that may have been the only person who someone could come up to and say,
"Well, you had Naaman, the commander of the Syrian army, get healed of leprosy."
Yeah,
who came to him and said, I have a ton of money here. I've got changes of royal wardrobe, We
don't need any of it. Go take a bath in the Jordan.
Yep. So, go dip yourself 7 times in the Jordan. And he leaves, and he's mad. Because it's like, he didn't take anything. He didn't take in. And his servant says, no, wait a minute. If he would have said, you got to go up to some mountaintop and slay some beast and, sprinkle yourself with his blood, would you have done it? He said, yeah. He said, then go and do what he asked you to do. So he went and he does dip himself 7 times. And it said that, his complete leprosy was cured. And he goes back to him and says, hey, I know now that your God is the only real God in existence. Because I've been praying to all of the gods in Syria, and none of them have listened to me. And he said, can I take it? I only ask one thing for you. Can I take a wagon load of dirt? Because I'm not going to sacrifice to any other God save yours. And he said, yeah, go ahead.
That's one question we really got to talk about maybe later on. Other gods.
Right.
Are there any?
I think the Bible pretty much just picks them as demon powers behind the gods.
Yeah.
There's no actual God, but there are
Baal,
demons,
for instance, which Baal is who even Abraham was praying to before his encounter with God.
Right.
That was a demon.
I think we can establish lesser Elohim spirits, but no actual gods.
Right.
We say lesser, meaning
lesser spirits,
holy?
Because God is spirit.
Right.
Not necessarily holy, but just spiritual beings, what most of us will probably refer to as some sort of angelic type being, or if they're fallen, that would be more of a demonic being, or depending.
Okay.
The first thing I think of is Aleister Crowley's little demon. I mean, I can't think of what his name was, but he had a name for that demon. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah, but that's not coming to mind.
Can't think of the name of it, but he had a name for his demon. And I believe it's something that Aleister Crowley actually physically could touch or talk to. I do. I believe it, whether I'm right or wrong. And then when you see the pictures that Aleister Crowley drew of his demon, what was that demon's name? I forget. But it looks just like the alien pictures they draw today. It's crazy, man. But that was Aleister Crowley's God.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with the centurion is just that the centurion was desperate. He knew that Jesus had a already established track record for healing, and he was hoping that, I'll go ahead and I'll suffer do the one thing that my culture tells me not to, which is humble myself and give up, some of my authority,
right,
and my honor, and do this. And he was correct in that was the thing that just amazed Jesus, was that, like you said, he said, look, because Jesus said, yeah, I'll come with you and I'll look at it right away. And he knew that it was disrespectful for a Jew, let alone a rabbi, to enter into a Gentile's house. They didn't do those things. So he actually went out of his way to give Jesus honor when he said, look, I'm a commander. I tell one person, hey, go. This one, hey, over there. And they go, they do it. And he said, since I have people under authority, I know you are under authority. Just say the word and the healing will take place. And Jesus said, go, it's been done to you. And that's when Jesus turns around, looks at the crowd and goes, you see that guy? He's got more faith and more understanding than all the people in Israel I've encountered.
Yeah.
When will your adventure begin? Join the Federation and become part of a mission to traverse to the skies. You can help our humanitarian missions, and you can help our disaster response units. In a world where political discourse has left a void in our world's ability to help hurricane and other natural disaster victims, it's the role of the Federation to stand tall and make a difference. Shop the Federation Promenade and make your donation at trekfederation.com today.
You've looked around and you've noticed that things are pretty unstable right now. It's hard to find abundance